Welcome back to the Grim and Glamorous podcast, and we are your hosts, LBG and Drea.
Hey guys, what's up?
Last time we did a few scary topics. We're gonna go back to something more pop culture-y. We're gonna start with like YouTuber drama, like celebrity drama, in regards to this idea of cancel culture. I feel like it's something that people have been talking about recently. Just wanted to ask the question, like, do you know what cancel culture is, or like are you familiar with that term?
Yeah, it's mostly like online. I mean, anything that people are against or people like have like a negative feeling towards, immediately they're like called out and they're just like, all right, you're canceled. We're no longer associating with you. We're not buying your product. We're not supporting you. We're just
It's like
you're here,
a
but
boycott.
yeah, it's like a boycott. Like for example, with this thing that right now that's like really popular, which kind of sucks that it's popular, but like people are going back to people's like old tweets and their old like social media posts, and if there's like one thing that's like remotely that they've said in the past that's wrong or whatever, somebody will come and like bring it up again, and they'll be like, "Oh, remember that one time that you said, XYZ statement? Well, 6 years ago online, well, because of your behavior, you're canceled. We are not supporting you. We're not going to buy your things, or if we have bought your stuff already, like we're throwing it out, we're burning it, we're destroying it. We're no longer fans of yours anymore."
Right.
So
I wanted to bring this topic up because it came up in a class that I took recently. So I was doing this leadership and democracy and like community social change class in New York. It was over the course of 2 weekends. So earlier this month and then last month, we met for 2 weekends and had discussions. And so we're talking about like social change, social policy, pop culture, and this idea of cancel culture came up, and there was a good discussion, and like many things in this course, there was a lot of debate about the merits of something, like what it means, does it go too far. So I kind of wanted to investigate this a little bit further and kind of look at it, like what is it exactly, and just our opinion on how that's taking place in the public discourse right now. But yeah, I think you brought up a good some good points about like what it is exactly. There was that incident with James Charles and what was
which one?
Toddy Westbrook or something.
Oh yeah, James and Toddy.
Yeah, so for like a good week, this was in like my news feed on like my phone. Like there's like the Apple News, and it came up like several times, and I'm like, what's going on? I didn't really follow it, and I'm familiar with James Charles and other YouTubers.
I'm shocked that even made the news.
It did. It was there for a while, and it was kind of shocking, but
because the news doesn't really focus on internet stuff like that.
yeah.
So I was surprised that that topic even came up on the news. I think I saw it too, like on like a Facebook post for like channel or what is it, WB or whatever network, the CW. I guess it's CW now. Yeah, and then they were talking about it, and I'm like,
well, I think because it had to do also with like Coachella and
that's true.
and
It was the
it
time
was just like a
Coachella.
topical
Yeah.
issue. I think that's the other thing too, and we'll expand on this point a little bit further in our next episode on memes, like internet memes and internet culture. But I think the fact that the news is having more like stories about internet things
Yeah.
that's just where our culture is right now. it's becoming more of a like a prominent thing that people are talking about. It's not just like politics and global news and Hollywood. It's like, oh, like what did these YouTubers do? Like what went viral?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like the news now, it's just like viral stories like they share. But yeah, back to this this idea of like cancel culture. There are some aspects of it that are definitely positive in the sense that it's calling people out on, you know, behavior, actions,
Mm-hmm.
views, opinions that are either, you know, controversial, racist, homophobic, misogynist, what have you. And the fact that people are getting called out, I think, is a good thing because, um, you know, I think when you're entitled to your opinion, and you know, we live in a free society where you can share your views openly, that doesn't mean that you are going to be immune from controversy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because
Right.
you have a right to share your opinion doesn't mean you should expect people to like it. And I think that's one of my contentions with you know our politics, but also just our culture. A lot of people, they want to share their view and they want it to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
And my perspective is, if you have a controversial opinion, you have to be ready and you have to accept the fact that you're gonna get some negative feedback. You're not entitled to positive feedback. You know,
Right.
if you're sharing like, you know, motivational posts and things to uplift people, and somebody is acting negatively towards that, to me that doesn't make sense. But that's just part of being a public figure and a public persona. You There's always just going to be the crazies out there. But you know, one thing that I see a lot in terms of politics, especially people that they have views that, you know, I would consider um, controversial or divisive, and they're surprised that people are attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, like the people are so against me, and they're reacting negatively toward me. Like, you guys are bullies. And I'm like, if you don't have thick enough skin to take the feedback that you're getting from what you're putting out there, then don't put it out there. Like, you have that
Right.
right, but people have a right to respond to it
Exactly.
in kind. And so, to me, that doesn't make sense, and it's an immature view on just like sharing opinions. Like, that being said, I think, you know, this element of calling people out on their bullshit, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
calling people out for their views, or at least having them explain their views, having them defend their positions, I think is definitely a good thing. And that's sort of like one of the benefits of the internet and like and technology, is that anybody can have a Twitter account or an Instagram or a Facebook, and they can respond to people's views. It's sort of like this uh, democratization of opinion. That being said, and as good as it is to call people out, you know, my concerns have been: do people react too quickly? Are people really like doing the most to like look back 5 years on somebody's timeline? Are you really just like, are you doing that because you're legitimately concerned about this person's views, or are you just like don't like this person and you're looking for evidence
Mm-hmm.
to attack that person?
Or they make it up.
Yeah, or they just
Yeah.
outright like, you know, Photoshop images, or
Like,
like
I mean, for example, like through this whole thing about like James Charles and Teddy Westbrook, like I think there was a story where one of the things that um about James Charles was that like he was being um accused of being you know, a predator. And I think there was a couple instances where people have like come forward and like talked about their experience with James Charles. And there was one specific one where it was like, oh, I went to high school with James Charles and he approached me in the bathroom he like grabbed me and blah blah blah. And later on, come to find out that was made up. Like that was a social experiment, and I wanted to see like what people would think. And I'm like, hold on, like, why would you do that? Like, especially if in something like so serious, like to make up a story, and then later say, oh yeah, of course I made it up. Like I wanted to see like how people would react to this, and like that's just, it's awful because like.
Yeah, you can ruin somebody's reputation.
Yeah, you can ruin somebody's reputation, somebody's life, like.
Yeah, and in regards to that in particular, that's one of the things that I definitely think is important, is to not be so quick to judgment about incidents or allegations, but you know, the world that we live in, it's just so instant and reactions are so fierce and so and fast that a lot of times you have to wait like a few days for a story to unfold before you really figure out what happened. In regards to like allegations like that where they're just made up, there can be legal consequences for especially if someone's a celebrity.
Yeah.
If you make up something and it harms their reputation, they can sue that person for defamation, and that can be, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in damages that the celebrity can sue for. Sometimes celebrities will sue for things that are true. Like, that's not uncommon, where somebody has a true story and they have proof, and they put it out there, and it negatively impacts a celebrity, and the celebrity's like, no, you're defaming me. And they sue them. So there's a lot of like issues surrounding, you know, incidents like this. And so you know, we bring up that example of the James Charles and Toddy Westbrook, because that was one thing where, as the story, like as days went by, like new stuff was coming out, and then certain allegations were getting proven wrong. I haven't even followed up with the story to find out like what ended up happening with all that. I know he may have lost a few sponsors.
It was mostly followers. There was even like, there were live counts on YouTube showing how many followers James Charles was losing.
Yeah.
It was bad. I don't know if you've ever heard of the YouTuber, he's like a gossip YouTuber, Rich Lux.
No,
I mean, he was posting videos like every couple hours. New James Charles, like, you know, James Charles watch.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane. And of course, like, I follow him, so I was like, I didn't watch every video because he was just putting up too many.
Yeah.
And it was constant.
That's another question I had for you, like regarding this specifically, like people's reactions to what was happening. When something like this happens, tons of YouTubers and influencers have like videos, and they're like, oh, my reaction to so and so.
Right.
Here's what I think. So, or here's like the tea or whatever. Especially if it's somebody close to the situation or knows that person. And like, so my question is like, do you think that they're just like trying to promote themselves? Like, is it just like clickbait? Like they just want followers and views because they know that people are gonna watch it? Like, are they sort of just taking advantage of the situation?
I mean, I want to say like yes and no. Like, I mean, James Charles has so many followers. Like, no, like there isn't gonna, he's not gonna have 100% all his followers just drop him like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sure he probably gained a few followers. I mean, even though they were just like rapidly, you know, dropping, I'm sure he gained his followers back already. Like, I don't see, he's always going to be famous. It doesn't matter.
And also, just to clarify for people that are listening that don't know who he is, like, can you just kind of explain like
James
what
Charles...
he is? I know sometimes with these like influencers, it's hard to really describe like what they do, But I know that he does like makeup, right?
He
Is
does.
he a makeup artist?
He's a beauty influencer. I think he's like 19. He's 19 and he does makeup better than me. I think he's he's an artist too. Like he's an artist and he plays piano, I think, but he's mostly known for his makeup skills. He has he doesn't have his own brand, but he did like a famous collaboration with a popular makeup company, Morphe. So he has a really nice palette out that's very popular. It's always sold out. I don't have it because it's always sold out. But yeah, he's one of those YouTube beauty guru, and he's one of the top people in the beauty community right now. So
okay.
Yeah.
And so you think that he can probably like there's gonna be fans that are loyal to him and.
Oh yeah, there's always gonna be, James, I followed you from the beginning. You know, whatever is happening, I'm still gonna support you. Like there's always those people who are out there who are gonna support them. I mean, there's always gonna be
diehard supporters.
Yeah, there's always gonna be the diehard fans, and then there's always gonna be like the people who are immediately like, James Charles, you know, spelled somebody's name wrong. Oh well, he's canceled because like he doesn't know how to spell a simple name or like something dumb like that.
And then versus like the people who like, I mean, aren't just even supporters, like they like buy their merchandise and like
Yeah, exactly.
Like run their fan accounts or whatever, like watch every video and like comment on their stuff.
Exactly.
So that kind of leads into like my next question. So what I thought was interesting about this incident in particular, but it's happened with other, you know, in movies, in television. There were some celebrities where, you know, people made up allegations or they were blown out of proportion. Exactly. But like the reaction again was like very fierce. And again, like you were saying, people have their supporters no matter what, even if they did something or admitted to something. You know, my question is, well, first of all, I thought what was interesting about this incident with James Charles was that the reaction was fierce and like by a lot of people immediately. And I kind of wanted to contrast that with maybe somebody like Shane Dawson, who and we've talked about this before, that he's had several times where like controversial you know, tweets or posts from years ago get routinely brought up. Yeah. And then, but they kind of don't really stick, and he has to address it. Like I feel like every so often there's something about, oh, Shane did this or said this. And so my question was, why is it that some people, it feels like controversy happens and it just doesn't affect them and it doesn't stick, versus other people where it just sort of lingers and it like damages their brand? Do you think it's just that they have such loyal followers that it doesn't really matter?
For someone like Shane Dawson, I don't feel like people are... I feel like people go and pick things out that when something is going good for somebody, they'll always go back and be like, remember that one time XYZ happened? I mean, those are the people who want to keep people down. So, like, for example, right now, like, Shane Dawson is, like, on his game with his, like, mini docuseries. Like, you know, he's upping his video, like, content. Like, it's, like, so much better than what it was, like, you know, in the past. And, I mean, he even, like, talks about it, too, in, like, one of his videos. He's like, you know, I don't do the same videos anymore, like... He was, like, sad and depressed, and he was just making videos every day just to make them, and, like, didn't really care about the content, and he just wanted, you know, wanted to upload stuff every day, and then now he's just, like, making sure that his videos come out really good. Like, you'll see him be like, oh, I'm editing, I'm editing, I'm editing. Like, he's constantly editing, constantly, like, trying to get his content to be, you know, good and something that somebody wants to watch.
Yeah.
And now that he's, like, gaining popularity because of that now, like...
I think he's engaged with Rylan now, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, so it seems like he's in a very good place.
He's in a good place right now. Somebody's always got to, like...
Go back and find something.
Remember when that person was a bad guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
So, I think people just want to start stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes it's, I don't know, maybe non-intentional. Sometimes it is intentional. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why somebody would go as far back and, like, say stuff like that.
Right. That was the other thing, too, that going off of that, I've heard this term before, like, the receipts. Like, this came up in the James Charles things. Like, can you just, like, explain, like, what that is? Because I feel like when people do that and they go back and they look at things, like, this term comes up. So, like, what is that? Is that a way to, like, defend yourself against, like, these...
The quote-unquote receipts usually just means, like, the proof that you have. So, normally, when they mean proof, it's usually, like, either in a text message or in a tweet or in a post, something that, like, normally is on social media or, like, a video that they've either posted in the past or, you know, that says something that, you know, was negative or, you know, something that's gonna back up what people are talking about. And even then, like, sometimes some of those things are, like, made up too. Because I know that, like, at one point, I don't know if it's still true or not. I think it kind of is that people have canceled. I don't know if you know her, Laura Lee. Like, Laura Lee is another one of these people who are in the beauty community. And
I'm not familiar with her.
I think in the past she has written some, like, racist tweets. Like, she's from Alabama, and that was her one excuse that she made was like, well, that's just how it is in Alabama or whatever like that, you know. But that was her excuse, which is obviously not a good excuse at all. And so that's why people had canceled her. So they would be like, okay, like, the receipts are these old tweets from, like, 2006. She says something racist.
Yeah.
So people would bring those back up and, like...
So it's just, like, evidence. Like, it's like, either evidence. Through text, tweets.
Yeah.
Just basically proof to back up what's going on.
Yeah.
Either to, like, defend yourself or defend your point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of, like, wrap up our discussion, like, about this whole thing with cancel culture, reactions to celebrities, influencers that have controversial opinions or content, or sometimes, like, they're not even a controversial figure. It's just, like, they said something and it can be taken out of context, or maybe they meant it. And it's just, like, this reaction to, it's sort of like disavowing this person, right? Like, right, it's like, exactly. I don't like this person. I don't agree with this person. So they're canceled.
Yes.
I think when you see, like, we just live in this time period where, first of all, people are very divided, and so there's controversy in anything, even if it's seemingly harmless. But then there's also people that put controversial stuff out there, like, just for fame or just for recognition, and for those people, I think what annoys me is that they're not apologetic for offensive views or hurtful opinions or hurtful actions. They, like, don't apologize. Whenever there's a controversy like this, what I look for, I'm not immediately gonna, like, cancel somebody unless it's pretty serious. But what I look for is if somebody is contrite and apologizes and they're honest about that. So the thing with Shane is the last controversy that came up, I feel like it was a few months ago. maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, something came up with like his old tweets or whatever, and his content and some of the stuff that he would post. He's like, I feel like this comes up a lot. I need to address it. And he said he used to post videos just to get attention because he didn't feel good about himself. He
Right.
felt like he had to be a different person. He felt like he had to be obnoxious and controversial because that's what would get him attention. And since then, he's changed his perspective. And like you're saying, he's focusing on producing quality content, meaningful content, stuff that's going to resonate with fans and viewers. And he's not looking to court controversy anymore. And he apologized and he said some of these things aren't true. Some of these things I said because I didn't feel good about myself, was what he was saying.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like I was like, that's exactly the response I was looking for as somebody that's a fan of his. So in my view, like he's not canceled, but for other people, maybe he is. But
Yeah.
to me, like that's contrite and that's like that's a sincere apology and an explanation. Versus other people, and I think this is what's so toxic about our culture now, is that people don't apologize even when they are at fault or even if they are hurtful. And they are quick to defend themselves and explain away something or blame the person that's hurt. Oh, well, that's my opinion and that's not my fault that you feel that way. Well, if somebody's being intentionally harmful and hurtful, and they don't apologize for their actions, I think that says a lot about who they are. And to me, like that type of person should be canceled. And we sadly we see that in a lot of areas now: politics, media, just popular culture. People that want to be outrageous for the sake of being outrageous, and they really aren't contributing anything to society or culture.
Right.
But that being said, there are people that do make mistakes. Like, again, like nobody's perfect. None of anybody that's listening, myself included, and anybody in this world can go back and look at their life and say, I wish I could have done things better. I wish I wouldn't have said this, done this instead of that. I mean, nobody is perfect. And so we are going to have mistakes, or we are going to say some things, out of anger, out of emotion, out of misunderstanding. But when somebody looks back and apologizes and says, oh, I could have handled this better, to me, like that's what I'm looking for from celebrities and just people in general. Just a willingness to accept fault, a willingness to admit when they're wrong. And I think, as much as we can get upset at people when they have these views, and it can be very hurtful. I mean, to look back at somebody and they have a racist tweet or a racist costume or says something misogynistic or offensive, it's okay to feel hurt about it. And, I think that's the good thing about cancel culture is people are calling people out for those things, which I think is needed today. And, but if somebody apologizes and they're contrite and they say, I'm going to try to learn, I'm going to try to be a better person after this, I think that's the best outcome. But, yeah, so I think that kind of wraps up our discussion. Did you have any final thoughts about just like, we're fans of I like Jeffree Star, like after that Shane's video, and I know he's been controversial.
Yes.
But,
I mean, okay, Jeffree Star, like, I believe Jeffree Star. I pretty much believe everything that he says in regards to his past and like from when, like how he says he's moved on from all those kinds of things. I believe it. But there are some times where I feel like he likes to stir the pot a little bit, but also like he'll admit to it. Like he'll own up to it and he'll be like, I was not in the right mindset. Like, he will apologize for his actions. But I do believe that all those old things that he has said in the past, like, are gone and done with, and he doesn't do that anymore. Yeah, he might, like, dabble in a little bit of, like, YouTube drama here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe that he's like a bad person where he needs to be like immediately, canceled.
Yeah.
Like according to everybody.
Yeah, because I feel like he's one person that a lot of people have been like, oh, he's canceled, and
But they're gonna still be buying his makeup. That's the thing, is that like he may be canceled, but you're not gonna live without that blood sugar palette.
That goes to show how many supporters he has despite the
Exactly,
controversy.
yeah.
Like, I'm sure there are people that are like, I'm not gonna buy his stuff, but so far it looks like it hasn't really had a major impact.
Right.
But yeah, and then I guess to kind of close out, like, and back to this point that you brought up about Shane providing quality content, the reason I became aware of Jeffree Star and viewed him differently was because of Shane's video. I think when Shane started his series about interviewing influencers and going behind the scenes and showing their life, like, that totally changed my opinion about him, because you see his background, where he came from, how he was bullied, how he was treated, and you can see how that kind of led to some of his controversial actions and statements. And to see how that's changed since then, and like you're saying, you believe him that he's sort of gone past that. I mean, I just think, to me, that speaks of the quality of content that Shane put out, and I think that, like, that's my larger thing that I'm sort of taking away from this discussion, is that the need for quality content. There's a lot of negative things out there. There's a lot of junk, and that's all the more reason why I look for people that have quality content. Us here for our podcast, we try to produce quality content, and there's just such a need for that. And so, like, when influencers or YouTubers or even like movies and TV shows, like, there's so much stuff out there that when you find something really good and people latch onto it, I think that they are flocking to that quality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of our larger takeaway, is put good stuff out there.
Yeah.